Welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Roger Humphrey. In this episode, I'm pleased to welcome the celebrated Armenian pianist and musicologist, Sahan Arzruni. Please join us as Maestro Arzruni tells me all about Armenian music, and we get a chance to discuss his latest album titled By Women. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's free and easy, and it helps the channel a lot. Thanks. And we are welcoming Sahan Arzruni to the show. Thank you, Sahan, for coming on the show. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yes. In preparation for this show, I was looking over a variety of things and listening to your music, and I could probably talk about your music for the next day and a half.
Let's not do that.
But it was, I absolutely love it. And you have your new album just out called By Women. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I'm doing a series, an outlook, a history of Armenian piano music, which started during the 1850s. There was, because Armenian music obviously is Middle Eastern and piano is not part of it.
Yeah.
Therefore, when the Armenians living in urban centers, they were exposed to Western instruments, and piano was part of that, and they started composing for Western instruments. And from then on, there was quite a development of Armenian music. Armenians lived not only in Armenia, Soviet Union actually, but also in the diaspora. So you will find Armenians from Argentina to Ethiopia to Australia to Russia. Therefore, there is a huge variety of approaches to Armenian music. But there is just one very fundamental figure in Armenian music who founded the contemporary Armenian music. His name is Komitas, Komitas, Komitas. And he was born in 1869, and at a very early age, he lost his parents. He was an orphan, and he was taken to the religious center of Armenia because of his very beautiful voice. When he went there and he was presented to the head of the church, the head of the church started asking him questions in Armenian, and this kid could not answer any of it. And it was found out that the kid did not speak Armenian because at home they spoke in Turkish. So he was born in Kütahya, which is part of the Ottoman Empire.
Okay.
Anyway, and then the head of the church said, "Could you sing?" And he actually sang a liturgical chant. And it was so moving that the head of the church started crying. Anyway, he was sent to a seminary nearby, and he struggled with the Armenian, but eventually he learned very properly. And during his summer vacations, this is very curious, he was alone. So his classmates invited him to come with them and live with their families in the villages. Komidas found very interesting the songs that villagers would be singing while tilling the soil. That fascinated him. And he decided he would just write down all this material, not only songs about tilling, but lullabies and wedding songs, whatever. He collected about 2,500 songs.
Wow.
Yes. And what he did was he analyzed each one of them, just making sure that the words, because they were singing with words,
Of course, yeah.
melody, and the melody itself corresponded. I mean, what do I mean by that? When you are talking in a given language, certain syllables are accented.
Yes.
In Armenian, almost always the last syllable is accented.
Ah,
There is such a thing in music also. Certain things are accented.
of course.
By holding it longer, you give more importance to that note. Therefore, it's accented.
Correct.
Or the pitch goes up, that means it's accented. And then Komidas compared those two. Did the accents in the music correspond with the accent in the prosody, in the word?
Right.
If it did not, that word did not belong to that song. It was foreign. It was made up. So he was able to clean up all of that and retain only those with Armenian words whose accents corresponded with the melodic accents.
Wow.
It's an extraordinary job. Soon thereafter, because maybe partly because of this work, he was sent to Berlin by the head of the church to study there further and get a doctorate. He learned the proper Western music over there and stayed there until 1899 and got a doctorate and returned to Armenia, where he taught for a while. But his reputation was so large at that point, and he had met all kinds of people while a student in Berlin, that he was asked to go to Europe and present, disseminate Armenian music to various Armenian communities. Say in Paris, for example, there was a large Armenian community who had absolutely no idea what Armenian music was all about. But the problem was the following. He was not going to bring the villager to Paris and have him or her sing those songs.
Sure.
That would be silly. He had to present them in such a way that would be acceptable to the sophisticated.
There is that, isn't there?
And well, these people were used to hearing song recitals in a theater with a stage, right? And maybe a lady singer with a long thing, walking slowly towards the piano and taking place in the thing.
A grandiose presentation.
Exactly. So he had to create illusion of that for the urban Armenian to accept
Ah,
their own national music. In Armenian tradition, musical tradition, there is a technique when duduk, they use duduk. Duduk is a kind of wind instrument.
okay.
Okay. When they play a melody on the duduk, they use two duduks. One duduk plays the melody, and the other one holds a note to kind of support. It does not play any melody or anything like that.
Like a drone note?
Yes, exactly. That's the word, drone notes. So he created a way of giving the impression that what the piano was playing, sort of accompanying the singer, was a drone note. He created a whole new technique of texturizing the piano part.
Gotcha.
It was such a novelty that in Paris, Debussy, when he heard this new technique, he said to Comidas, "You will be a star in the firmament of music."
Well, I have to interject here real quick, like because um, uh, you placed or you put up a sample of your playing of one of his songs on your website,
Yeah.
and I listened to it, and the first thing I thought of was Debussy. I mean, it just immediately I went, "That's you know," and and so I was going to ask you about that anyway. So okay, so here we are. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I kind of had to get my 2 cents worth in.
So anyway, he created about 80 or so of the songs that he collected for piano and song. And then he made arrangements for choir. Again, he created a certain technique so that it would give this impression, only an impression. There are four voices. There has to be different voices.
Sure.
But he created a technique that gave the impression as if it was just the melody with a drone note.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, my impression of the piece that you played, along with several of the other pieces that I've heard from your new album, is that there's a shimmer, for lack of a better word. It seems to shimmer a little bit like butterfly wings at night or something. I mean, it was just, and I really, really, really like that. But that was also my sense of this, the work of Komitas. I was wondering if that was kind of a general characteristic of Armenian piano music.
there is no such thing as Armenian piano music. It's foreign to. This is Komitas actually, the recording that you heard
Uh-huh.
contains the entire works of Komitas written for piano. But all kinds of things, all kinds of composers inspired by Komitas's approach to music, along with their own individual voice, created music that was very much Komitas, had there not been a Komitas, and also it was them. For example, take Khachaturian. You know Khachaturian.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, the saber dance, for example. There's so much of Komitas in that saber dance.
Oh, really?
Even quotes from him.
Oh, my goodness. I had no idea.
Okay. But then he has his own style. Each Khachaturian couldn't be anybody else.
Of course.
But without Komitas, there wouldn't be a saber dance. So anyway, my whole purpose is to make this history consisting of 8 CDs.
Okay.
This is the fourth one. The first one was Comidas, who is the founder,
Uh-huh.
and the second one is contemporaries of Comidas who were influenced by him. The third one is very curious. I was a friend of Alan Hovhaness, and before he died, he gave to me about 40 or so manuscripts,
Oh my.
which never performed, never printed, never recorded. And he said, if one day you get a chance to record some of this stuff, I would be very pleased. So anyway, the third one contains all new Hovannes. You know, he uses some of the material in other pieces.
And I absolutely love the music of Hovannes as well. So
Yeah. So you can go to my website and see that recording, the Hovannes. So this one is actually devoted to Armenian women composers because the people who sponsored this asked for it. I
ah,
was going to do a women's recording, but this is kind of out of place. Uh, but never mind. Uh, since the money was there, I would do it. And I found, Roger, about 38 Armenian composers.
well, that's a lot.
Did you know that the very first composer, woman composer in the world is an Armenian? 8th century.
No, that I did not know.
It's in the Groves. You can go and check it.
Oh, well, I believe you.
There are two composers. And I was fascinated by this some 25 years ago. And there was a wonderful rendition of one of the liturgical chants. And I had copied it and had asked Argentine Armenian composer Alicia Terzian if she would use that material, the song, the monophonic song, chant,
Uh-huh.
and use a live piano part and make a piece for me. You know, somebody commissioned
Yes,
for me.
sure.
Well, she did a phenomenal job. Not only she took the voice as was recorded, but she electronically transformed it and then added the narration of the poetry itself, the chant, the
Is
words,
that the Ode to Bahan?
Ode to Bahania. And then the piano part. And this was written in 1996. I had done it a couple of times. It involves a computer and this and that. It's not so easy to put it together and make sure that everything goes right. So with the recording, you know, it was done just right.
Sure.
And, you know, I sent it to her and she's delighted with it. So
Well,
that is,
when I was listening to your album, and that's on the album, of course, the new one by women, and I'm listening to this lovely music, the sonatina, and I mean just all of this beautiful music that I really love. And again, I come back to that shimmer, you know, that it is in your playing and is written into the music. And then Ode to Vahan. And I
yeah.
came out of my chair about that far when that first chord opened up. It's startling, and it was so different. I mean, I liked it, and I assumed that the spoken words were a poem or some.
I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is. It's an interesting story. Uh, the woman who wrote the chants,
Uh huh.
the entry, Khosrowi. Uh, she was abducted by the Arabs in the 8th century,
Uh-huh.
standing all over the place, and along with her brother, whose name was Vahan. And Vahan was taken to Damascus. And because of when he grew up, he was very smart. And he was made the counselor for the Sheikh of Damascus.
Okay.
While the sister, Khosrowido, was taken to the interiors of Asia Minor, a city called Amasya, and was imprisoned in a tower called Anichamach. The tower still exists. When Vahan, the one in Damascus, the young guy,
Mm-hmm.
obviously he was Islamized once he was taken down. When he was 18 years old, he said, well, I was not Islam, I was made Islam. I want to go back to my original religion, Christianity. When he expressed this desire, he was beheaded.
Yeah, I was going to say they wouldn't take to that very kindly, would they?
According to the Islamic religion, if somebody leaves the religion, you're gone.
Right.
When this news arrived to Khosrowitu, to his sister, clearly she was very moved, and she wrote a poetry. And this poetry is the text of the chant, which someone reads very beautifully. It's in classical Armenian. And it is a secular poem, but later on, 11th, 12th century, something like that, because of the circumstances of its composition, the church, the Armenian Apostolic Church, canonized it and turned it into a liturgical chant. And to date, it is sung once a year.
Oh, really?
That's why, I said it's the first ever composition that exists, earliest composition.
Well,
there are other compositions that were written before, but the music doesn't exist.
I understand. So when I was listening to it, one of the things that I, at first when I heard it, because I wasn't expecting narration, I wasn't expecting to hear a human voice. And so once I kind of got over my shock of that, started getting to it, I thought, well, my first instinct was it would be nice to have a translation of the poem. But then I thought about it afterwards, and I thought, no, I mean, the story is indicated anyway, if you take a moment and look it up. But what really struck me was listening to it and listening to the melody of the words themselves, the beauty of the language. You understand the basic, understand the basic text, but just to listen just to the ebb and flow of the melody of the language, really is a lovely counterpoint to everything else that's going on. So I thought, I don't think I want a word for word translation here. I kind of get the idea. It's sort of like going to the opera, and you have a synopsis of the scene. You don't have to understand every word that's being sung.
And anyway, in poetry, especially, there is no such thing as translation. It loses. Prose is perhaps okay, but poetry, there is an inner rhythm and this and that, and it's very difficult to catch that.
Well, I've had the privilege of teaching guitar, teaching music at a private music studio in East Lansing, and I'm just yards away from Michigan State University and about 45,000 students. And so we had a very large international student body that came through. And parents talking to their children, and certain things I've laughed about. I mean, you understand. I don't have to understand the language to understand when a mom is angry with her child. you pretty mom speak is pretty international, but to listen to the various languages. And just to listen to the music of the language without understanding the words, it was something that I came to appreciate over all those years. And so that was kind of what came out from Ode to Vahan for me was listening to the music of those words. That's just the subtleties of the language itself.
Nice.
So it was very nice. I do have to talk about Nightingale of Armenia as well.
Oh, wow. That's I didn't know about that piece. And I have a friend in Cairo, Egypt, and he's a musicologist. And I was telling him about this project. And I said, I just wonder who was the first woman to write for the piano. Because For Servitude is a song that we converted into this medium. And he is a very good researcher. And he looked and found a work that was published in 1913 in an almanac. And the article says that it was written in 1879 by a 16-year-old young lady who was a student studying music. And this was just an experiment that she did as part of her study. She married a couple of years afterward, but at the age of 22, she died. So this was the only piece that existed, and they found it.
Oh, my.
And this magazine that was published in Istanbul, the lady was also Lucy Hazarabedian. That's the maiden name. Was also from Constantinople, Istanbul. So in her belongings, they found this piece. There was no other music whatsoever. And it was published in this almanac called Teotik in 1913 in Istanbul. And my friend in Cairo had access to Teotik. Was published for 40, 50 years. He came across, he did his research.
Okay.
A great deal. He did his research. And in the book, there is actually her own handwriting of this piece.
Oh, wow.
Her picture taken at that time. And she was married just for 1 year to a doctor, and then she passed away. So this was invaluable. It can't be that there is anybody else before 1870. Or it's unlikely. So I just called it the very first piano piece written by a woman. It's old-fashioned. It's very old-fashioned.
But it's lovely.
It's lovely. It's nice music. It's well put together for a 16-year-old.
Very, very well. As I was listening to it, and this is my classical guitarist curse. As I was listening to it, I was trying to think, gee, I wonder if I could transpose this to the guitar, because it's the loveliness, the lightness of it, because the guitar basically is a fairly light instrument, has a very light, delicate sound, and it's such a delicate little piece of music, and it's really pretty.
Relate to it very easily.
I'm sorry?
You can relate
Yes.
to it very easily.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you one more question before we close, and that is, are you still performing live? I know you're recording, obviously, but do you still do concerts? Do you still tour?
Oh yeah, I just got back from Armenia. I was there for 16 days, 17 days.
Uh-huh.
And I did 8 different concerts in 8 different cities.
My goodness.
In between, I did master classes for about 5 or 6 hours a day. Then, I would do the master class, and I would choose a couple of students who were outstanding.
Uh-huh.
Then I would take them into my research, make them part of it, and then all of us will perform, which makes the whole thing relevant to the school and to the city and this.
Of course.
So it was extremely tiring. I had a terrific driver. I'm very much interested in monasteries.
Oh.
All monasteries. But suddenly I discovered that there are ruins of monasteries from 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th centuries.
My goodness.
But they are in places where there are no roads or anything like that. They are in the middle of a forest or on top of a mountain, and to get there is very hard. But I went to 6 of them, and I've taken about 2,000 photographs.
You are an intrepid individual, sir.
So no, it was tiring, and soon I think with this women's program, I will go to Sydney and Melbourne and South America to Buenos Aires.
Well, good luck with all of that. So I am going to, we're out of time, believe it or not. So it went by far too fast. Like I told you earlier, I could spend a day and a half talking to you, I'm sure. And I've enjoyed this a great deal. Thank you so much, Sahan, for taking the time to come on the show. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I don't know about you, but I found that absolutely fascinating. I am so grateful to Maestro Arzruni for taking the time to appear on the show. And I want to thank you, too, for taking the time to listen. Hey, if you like this program, please tell your friends and ask them to join us. And I hope to see you and them real soon on Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.